Hey guys, welcome to our very first sit down. I am so excited. Got my coffee that I'm not gonna be able to drink because I'm gonna be talking so much, but I hope that you have a coffee too, because who wants to live without coffee? This is Bagheera. He's our cat. Now that we have our first distraction of the evening. Okay, so I'm really excited. This is something that I planned on doing from the jump. I look back at my life, let's just get used to this. I look back at my life and I think about all of the times that I wish that I would have documented, because I've always been a picture taker. I've always been, I need to get a little more comfies. Always been like a picture taker. I always am like a storyteller. Like, I love music. I love all of those things, and I wish so much that I would have documented them. And so I'm gonna record definitely like a kind of little bit of get to know me, but I feel like this one is really the latest update on like where I am and how I got to where I am now. So I have like a couple notes here because, you know, I love to talk, y'all. I love to just TED talk you. So I want to kind of stay on top of the really important things that I want to share with you guys. So I thought this would be a perfect video to start with what I learned from opening a business, and I guess sharing with you guys how I'm feeling today after closing my business. So I started my studio in 2017, freshly 26 years old. I had my son Mannix in November, and I always, if you ask anybody that really truly knows me, knows that I've always wanted to be a mother, and I've always wanted to stay at home and raise my children. It just was always, and I hate saying that out loud because it could have totally been, I've always dreamed of running like a corporation and still being a mom. Like, you can do both. So I don't ever want that to make anybody feel like they should feel a certain way. If you're a mom, you're a mom. It doesn't matter if you stay at home. I always have had that in my heart. I've always wanted that. I've always wanted, you know, I always said I was gonna have 6 children. I just had my son in November. He was born November of 2016, and I was staying at home, and I am from Buffalo, New York. And for those of you that don't know, there are many seasons there, but the longest season is winter. And so from November until May, you're not getting the sunshine. You're not, there's not a ton of things to do, you know, outside. You're just kind of stuck in the house. So I just had my son Mannix, and I was like, after a few months, I'm like, I need to get out of the house, which you need those few months to just bond with your baby, recover, understand parenting, like relax, chill. And I'm so grateful that I was able to do that. But after a while, I was like, I need to get out. And I always loved group fitness. We used to have a gym. It was called World Gym. It was a franchise, and they would have group classes, and I would always go to the body pump and the spinning classes and just like all of the things in high school. So I had no idea, because studios weren't really a thing until, I can't even tell you when, but I heard of a studio from a girl that I used to work at my family's business with. She actually left to pursue her fitness journey, and so she's like, yeah, I teach there, like I don't remember, I teach this day and this time, and you should come. And I was like, oh my gosh, like that sounds great. And so I was really nervous. I showed up. They didn't have a front desk person. It was the instructor's responsibility to open up the building. So everybody was kind of waiting outside. We went in. I wasn't really familiar with the bikes. Again, there's one instructor and a group of, like a room filled with people. I was kind of like, I don't really remember, but I just remember feeling like, oh my God, I'm just winging this, you know? And the class was amazing. Like, she played, and I love all music, but she played the best music. She had really good energy. She was an amazing coach. Like, it just was the greatest. And after class, I remember feeling the endorphin rush. But, you know, ever since you know, I come from a family that owns businesses, and I've always been around that entrepreneurial background, and I always was like, I never felt a calling to have like be a teacher or be a doctor or be a lawyer, or I always just knew that I wanted to be a creative, and that wasn't normal like for me growing up. I feel like now more than ever that is so embraced, but it just wasn't embraced. It was like, you have to go to college, you have to get a 9-to-5, they provide you benefits, you have to put your 30 years in, and then you can retire. And I just was never interested in that. And it was so difficult for me for so long to lead a life like that and understand that like my life was gonna look a lot different than everybody else's. And so, but I still chose, thank God I have a partner that feels the exact same way, you know, even though he does have a 9-to-5, but we have so many dreams and we're such creatives that it's just never ending. So thank God I had somebody alongside me to do those things and to lead with that. But so I talked to this girl after the class, and I'm like, so like, what are these bikes? And she's like, these are the best of the best, you know. And so she's like, do you want to go like grab coffee? And at the same exact time, the owner's like boyfriend walked in and heard me asking questions and got all weird. And I think he ended up like, I don't know, like saying something to her, but she's like, do you want to go and get coffee down the street and we can talk? And so I was like picking her brain about all of these things. Like, I've never taught a class before, knew nothing about, like, have never opened a business, knew nothing about the fitness industry. I just knew like, and I think this is where it came in, like where my heart was like, I knew what I was looking for, and I knew that there was nothing like it around us. And that studio was like a good little preview of what I could build from my heart and my creativeness. And so we sat down and I was picking her brain, and I'm like, I am gonna open up a cycling studio. And I remember calling my sister and I was like, I am forever changed. Like, I'm opening up a cycling studio. So funny. I just had to grab my, which by the way, I literally ordered nightstands and they're not going to be in until late September or October 1st. Amazing. 2020. It's fine. We literally sat on my son's mattress for months to get furniture, so it's whatever. So I remember calling my sister, and it's so funny because she lives in Cleveland. That's where we both went to college. She finished, I didn't. And I always laugh because Cleveland's just like Buffalo, but it's like 10 steps ahead. So like, they had Chipotle when I was in college, and we didn't get Chipotle in Buffalo till like last year. Like, just as like, so I call her and I'm like, I didn't know studios were like a thing. And so she's like, yeah, she was laughing at me, you know, like she used to go to a studio. And I'm like, I'm gonna open a studio. And she was just like, okay, I don't remember. But so I call my mom, like, I'm opening up a studio. And my mom, God bless her soul, she supports me in every thing that I've had in my heart, like every idea. She knows that, like, she just is a great support. And she's like, okay, like, you know, whatever. So I'm like, Colin, I'm opening up a studio. And he's like, I got you, like, you just let me know what you need. I went home and took a deep dive and found something called SoulCycle, and then dove into that. And SoulCycle is like the founder of rhythm riding, and they opened up this little studio in New York City. These two girls who were just like loved riding, they met each other on a blind date from two friends that were like, you guys have like the same vibe, you need to meet up. And on a napkin they wrote the plan for SoulCycle, and SoulCycle is now like, if not the largest brand in the entire world. Obviously now there's Peloton, but for rhythm riders, like, they're just, so I studied them because they are the best of the best. I studied everything, and I call my mom and I'm like, we need to go to New York City and we need to study SoulCycle. And she's like, okay. So one day I'm driving by an old bagel place, and it was called Manhattan Bagel, and I knew it had closed down because when I was pregnant with Mannix, one day I was craving bagels, and I'm like, oh, I'll go to Manhattan Bagel. It was like the spot in Orchard Park, but I haven't been there for years. So I pull up there and they're closed. I already have my, like, I look up the menu, I pick out what I want to eat. Like, you know, you're just like, it's all set in stone, and then you get there and they're closed and you're like. So I ended up driving past Manhattan Bagel and I saw a for rent sign, okay? Not just a for rent sign, a for rent sign. We're human beings, we're expressive, we use our hands. So I'm like, a for rent sign. I get the phone number, I call, she's like, yeah, it's available. She tells me the rent, it's astronomical. We have to renovate it. I'll meet you later today. So we go to meet. She shows me the place. It's huge. I start to envision exactly what it's gonna look like with, mind you, I have no money, like no money saved to just like do all of these things. And I didn't care. Like I didn't care that I would have like done whatever. It just was in me already. So I remember my mom, so I call my mom, I'm like, Mom, come and see this place. My mom walks in and she was like, absolutely not. Like electrical issue, like just insane amount of things, like insane. So my mom ends up knowing the owner of the building through our family business, and they get to talking away, and I'm like, this is it, Mom. Like this is it. Like nothing can stop me. Like this is a place where this business is gonna be. It's gonna be called Vibe, because I want all of the vibes to just be immaculate. Like vibes are so important. The energy, like Vibe just fit it perfectly. Vibe Cycling Studio. So long story short, I was unstoppable from that moment, and I knew exactly what I wanted, and I wasn't gonna settle for anything else. And that brings me to the first, we pinched pennies. We used every single cent that we possibly had. Every dollar that could go to this business went to it. I had 0 loans on the business. Every single thing that I did, Amazon, you know, the washcloths, whatever. The bikes we had rent to own, so we would just pay them monthly, and then at the end you can keep them or sell them back or something like that. Obviously we would have kept them. I'm trying to think of what else. The sound system we paid out of pocket for, every single thing. And so we hired a family friend to renovate the entire place. I picked out the colors. I knew what I wanted it to be like, smell like, look like. I just wanted it all. And I didn't have all of the things that I had in the beginning that I had at the end, because I would just use money I was making through the business to buy wall decals and, you know, whatever. But that stuff wasn't important. Of course, I wanted people to be able to come to a beautiful space, and then after they saw the beauty, they would have rode anywhere because they loved the brand so much. But I knew like first impression was everything, and I needed to get these people in the door. And I thought it was going to be easy, and everybody knows, you know, Orchard Park, and everybody's passing it, and, you know, so on and so forth. And it was not. It was the exact opposite. So that leads me to tip number 1. Realization number 1. It's okay to feel like you have no idea what you're doing, because you don't. I winged it all. Like, I'm telling you. And I think, you know, my counselor in college, because I struggle with school because I was not interested in any of it, and I didn't feel as it was adding any value to my life, and just being honest. And I remember telling my counselor, I'm like, I'm like, I don't know what I'm gonna do or what I should do. And he's like, the best students in the entire world are C students. Like, all you have to do is not get an F and you're good. Like, because C students know what it's like to struggle. They know, and they can help the world by knowing, like, not seeking perfection. And I think, not to say that an A student, I mean, the most brilliant people are literally the most successful in the world. But in my experience, I feel like just believing in my dream and just having a vision and just not stopping for anything was enough. Like, that was enough. And I didn't know what I was doing. I had no idea anything about fitness. My dad was like a certified personal trainer. I never taught a cycling class in my life. I went, I got certified, and I said, this is the type of class that I love and I would want to take, and this is what I'm gonna do. My mom and I went to New York City to Soul Cycle. I remember going in, I could cry right now, going to New York City and just seeing all the people, like the hustle and bustle of the city, that all these dreamers, whether they were 9 to 5, you know, Wall Street people, or, You know, they own the local bagel place. Like, it just is, I love that stuff, you guys. If you like don't know that about me by now, like what, I don't know what a word would be for me, but I'm literally tearing up. Like, I can't. But going to New York City and seeing, like, to me, what I thought was the best of the best in the entire world, going to where they opened their brand. Now they ended up selling their business for like $90 million, the two owners, and to Equinox, and they bought them out. And riding with these people and learning from them, not even knowing them, just going to the class and feeling the energy of the room and seeing what I wanted for my brand and being inspired by these people who change lives, like it's cheap therapy. It just was insane. And so from that moment on, like, it didn't matter if I knew what to do. I was gonna figure it out along the way and take it as it came at me. I remember one night my mom and I were setting up all of the bikes right before we opened. I only started with 10 bikes, okay? And I had them like circled. And I remember like just texting random people that I thought would like be good teachers. And I was like, I will train you. Like, I want you to teach at my studio. Like, we would have these meetings and all these things. And I had them like this. And I was, to level the bottom of the bikes, you had to like, there was these knobs on each side and you had to unscrew and screw them because the floor wasn't completely like flat. And so I remember my knuckles were bleeding, and I was like, I have videos on my phone, you guys, of just being like, everybody that doubted me, like, look at this, I'm back here at 5 in the morning, my business, like my baby, and people like are getting up in the morning to come be with us like at the studio. And it just was like amazing. And that leads me to number 2, document the process. I'm so grateful that I have those things to look back on. I send them to my girls from the studio weekly. We talk about the memories that we had, the conversations. I mean, these girls invested so much into my dream, my brand. Every single teacher, front desk worker started as a client. Every single one. They believed in it so much. They believed in me so much, and that they had to be a part of it. It's like, now being able to look back on all of that, I'm so appreciative that I documented those things. I mean, we went through so much together. So many babies were had in that entire 3 years. So many people told each other that they were pregnant in that studio, including clients. You know, terrible, you know, people going through losing people, you know, death. I lost my grandma, you know, and I remember sitting in the studio blasting the music and just scream, cry in the studio, because it was like the only place that I felt safe enough to be vulnerable with everything, you know, the loss of experience with having Jameson, you know, so early, and going through that and having the support of the studio. And I had Jameson, I taught, and then I was just out for, you know, a couple months. But Ashlyn telling me that she was pregnant there, Kayla, Andrea, Shelly, Heather. You know, when we closed because of everything that went down in 2020, everybody banding together, clients, instructors, doing whatever they could, husbands coming, you know. One of the most difficult thing was one of our instructors losing her husband during the third month of the pandemic. And this is so important, you guys, to love something this much and care so much about something. And if it doesn't bring you this much joy, obviously I'm talking about something that's not joyful right now, but I'm also crying because I love these people so much still. And it's just a whole process and a whole journey of emotions. This place was everything. Like, I remember when we closed and people would send me emails just saying like, that was the place that I went to when I had like nothing left in me to give, and it gave me everything. And so just to kind of look back on that and be able to look at those emails and look at those text messages and look at the pictures and look at the videos and look at our social media and see and document the entire process. I have a picture of Mannix in his pack and play in the building before we renovated, when I was saying like everything that I wanted. I have a picture of my mom and I and Mannix in front of the For Rent sign, like all of the, all of our trips to New York City. And I ended up going to New York City with clients, like people that I met through the studio, like just so much beauty. I can go on forever with it. But document the process, document it all. Have a journal. I wish I would have been vlogging, all of it, all of the things. Document it all. In the beginning, so that leads me to number 3. And these aren't in any special order. This was me pouring my heart on these notes. People don't buy services, they buy relationships. And in the beginning, they're buying a service, right? And so for me, it's like the first time that they walk through the door, what does it look like? What does it smell like? Are they being greeted? Do they feel, a lot of people, 90% of the people that walk in there are gonna feel uncomfortable because they're gonna wanna feel, like they're an outsider. But in the beginning, there were no relationships. So they were coming in for the service, right? But what was I gonna do to stand out from everybody else? Which was my brand? Like I was saying, what did it look like? What did it smell like? Were we helping them? The same thing with me, like, was I helping them set up the bike? Asking them if they were familiar with this exact bike? Some people were, and we could read the room. Like when I would talk to the front desk girls, I would just say, if we'll ask them about the bike. Some people came in like, no, I don't want any help, and we would just back off. Okay, let me know if you need anything. And some people would be so grateful to have the help, and you would have to like pull it out of them, and we were so good at that. I remember in the beginning, I wanted like my own scent, like kind of like when you go to a certain hotel maybe, or just like when you smell something and it just like, you're like, that's like that moment, or a song you hear or something, and I wanted a scent. And so I went around like smelling every scent like possible. And I went to Williams-Sonoma, and they had pink grapefruit spray, and I spent hundreds of dollars a month on that spray. Like, and I would be psychotic about it. I would walk in the studio and I'd be like, this needs to be sprayed like immediately. Like, I wanted it to be the first smell that people smelled when they walked in the door. We ended up making it towards the end. I never wanted it to smell like a gym. We ended up making it ourselves at the end because it just got so expensive. But in the beginning, I just didn't care. I just wanted to create magic. I wanted to create relationships. Like, we knew where your kids went to school, like to college, and that you were visiting them next weekend, and that you met their boyfriend for the first time and you were nervous, or that your sister was sick and you were really struggling and you needed support. Like, and so we made sure that everybody felt special because they were special, and we wanted to take care of everything. I remember in the beginning, so a big thing is we would write people's measurements down because they wouldn't remember them, or if you wrote them on a card and you gave it to them, they would lose it or not have it. So I kept a book. We had like 5 books. Everybody was in there by last name, and we would write down their measurements, and then we just ended up setting up their bike before they got there, and then it just became a thing. So we would have this whiteboard, and we would do 1 through 20. When we closed, we had 20. We ended up going from 10 bikes to 20 bikes. Well, we went from 10 to 15, and then 15 to 20. They were spaced out enough where people weren't on top of each other. Do 1 through 20, and then we'd write their name. And then when they would walk in, they would see their name. We knew where people liked to sit. We would talk to them like, hey, do you only want to sit here? Do you care where you sit? I just felt like if they're coming here, I know as a human being, like, I have the weight of the world on my shoulders. Like, I don't want to do all the things. I want to be taken care of, and that's how I felt with the brand of Vibe. Like, I wanted to take care of people. We were the first and only studio around to do cold eucalyptus towels. I remember my girlfriend Carly came in and gave me the recommendation. She's like, the gym that I go to does this. And so we started doing that. It was so much work, but so worth it to see how happy it made the clients, and we were willing to go the extra mile. I remember when we got a quote on the bikes, I got the Stages bikes, and my mom's like, are you sure you want to do this? Like, these are so expensive. It's going to take you 3 years to pay these off. And I'm like, yeah, I'm positive, because they deserve the best of the best. My next tip is, or realization is, find things that get your creative juices flowing. Even now, not having a business, I know when I need to take a step back and do the things that fill my cup. Because every single day, I'm not just going to wake up and feel like so grateful to be here, and which we should. For me, that was trips to New York City, you know, twice a year, so that I could go to SoulCycle and be a rider and learn and educate myself, to make the studio better. When I would go to my sister's and I would try studios around there in Cleveland. Massages, literally weekly massages, because at the mall around the corner from us, it was literally $1 a minute. You'd go in the mall, you didn't have to have an appointment, you would just wait, go do your massage, whatever. I spent so much time after class sitting at the studio and just like taking in, just practicing pure gratitude, just so grateful for everything. I remember I would sit there after class and it would be silent. Like, everybody would have left, the front desk would have left, and it would be silent, and I'd be like, we just had 60 people, which for us that was a lot, you know, on a Saturday morning come through the studio, and now it's just pure silence. And all of those people went home with like a fuller heart and a fuller appreciation for who they are, and that was just so much for me. And so kind of going back to another realization that I had was, money, the best advice that I ever had is when I started to study people who opened businesses and just had the most incredible success with them, was Allie Webb. She had said she opened up the Dry Bar. She was a stay-at-home mom. She had 2 little boys, and she would just like, she was like she has a whole really cool story, but she said at the end of the day, nobody died. Money can be made again. Like, you can take the opportunity again. And I just always kept that in my heart, and I still do to this day on anything that we do. Money is just an object. Like, of course it can give you a great life and great experiences, but you don't need it to have a great life or create great experiences for yourself. And so I knew, like, I was taking a chance. I think too, like, I just want to add, one of the greatest successes that I did have was listening to my clients. I always would connect with them before and after class. I would reach out to them and I would just say, like, how is everything? What can we do better? You know, all of the things. Like, I just would constantly connect with them and just make sure that they were happy and they were comfortable enough to be honest with me and make suggestions, and we would change them. Because at the end of the day, me as a rider, knowing what I wanted to make sure that they felt the same way. Like, even though this was my studio and my brand that started it, they carried it and they made it what it was 3 years later. The community was they were the brand. Like, they ended up making it what it was, because if nobody believed in it or loved it as much as I did, it would be nothing. So they always came first for me. Always, always, always. Another really good piece of advice or wisdom that I've learned from opening up a business is, don't share your dream with anybody that's not going to give it good energy. I've done it so many times in my life, and I knew what response I was going to get, and I knew I was going to be so disappointed by the response, yet I still did it because you think that the people closest to you and the people that you love are going to support your dreams no matter what, and it's just not the way that the world works. And so if I could go back, I would have protected my dream at all costs, but I'm also so proud of myself that I still did everything that people doubted, because the crazier it sounds to people, the more amazing it is to me in my heart. But that's something that I didn't know in the moment, something that I can look back on now and I can know. But guess what? Just like I said earlier, on a Saturday, 60 people believed in my crazy dream enough that they wanted to spend an hour and a half of their time in that place. So thank God I listened to that, right? Because if I didn't listen to that and I didn't lead with that, and I allowed those things to dictate my, you know, where I was gonna go with this, and it wouldn't have existed. Closing the business was the hardest thing that I've ever had to do. You know, to make that decision was, it was, anybody that you know closest to me will tell you how difficult that was for me. it's so much fun to be, right? Like, we think it's so much fun to be the leader, to be the owner, and it really is, and it's not for everybody, and it's surely not easy. I dealt with so many difficult situations, but I never gave up because, as you can see, the love and the passion that I had for it was so much stronger than anything that could be thrown my way. Like, I want to say I don't know how I did it, but I know how I did it because the passion in me was so much stronger. And I had an incredible team. To have to make that decision, to weigh the pros and cons, to not be able to have it. I fought so hard to have it still exist. Who wants to buy a business in a pandemic where you can't even be open still? Nobody. Maybe run it from here. You know, I tried all of the things and it just wasn't meant to be. And this was meant to be. And I wouldn't trade this experience moving with my family to Florida, you know, to a new state. Now that we did this, I feel like we could do anything. I feel like this is not even maybe our forever. I feel like I'm so ready for all that life has to experience. I've grown so much as an individual. I still mourn the loss of it. I still feel lost. I don't know what's next for me. I don't know what I want to do. I know right now I want to focus on being, you know, a mom and drowning out the noise. I know that I have all this creativeness and all these things built up inside me that I need to release, but I've just been kind of sitting with it and not trying to figure it out all the time. I think when any of us look back on our life and we look at the things that were the scariest, most challenging, the most confusing, the greatest things were born from that. Maybe if we don't even exactly see that now, but I'm just a believer. I'm a sucker. Lastly, as I take this last sip of coffee, be proud of yourself for wherever you are in life. If you did finish college, if you did open a business, if you have dreams to open a business, if you're passionate about something, like, I'm so proud of myself. And I don't understand why it's so uncomfortable to say those things, like what we believe in, who we are, and to just be proud of ourselves. I'm so proud of myself that I took the risk of everybody thinking that I was crazy, or that I couldn't do it, or that it would cost too much money, or, you know, whatever. Like, all of the noise, like, I'm so glad that I didn't listen. There's many times that we always listen to the noise, but I'm so glad that my heart was stronger than the noise. And I'm so freaking proud of myself for doing something that mattered. Like, for building a community that mattered. But as much as I'm so proud of myself, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for the community. And it is something that money cannot buy. It is something money cannot buy. Like, no matter what, it's something that is irreplaceable. And to experience that in my life for maybe is not as long as I pictured or I wanted to, or you know, I'm so grateful for that experience, because that is the human experience, and that is what life is about. And so if you have a dream, or if you have a vision, follow it. Surround yourself with people that feel that, right? People that feel that. You will find them. You have to just create it for yourself. And I didn't have that in every aspect of my life, so I went out and I created it. That's what you were meant to do. You're meant to do that. You have the gifts, you have the honor and the privilege as a human being in waking up another day to do whatever the F you want with your life. But the most important thing that you can do is make an impact on other people's lives. I'm so proud that I did that, and I'm so proud that everybody in that studio decided to come together and form something just so beautiful that they will all remember for the rest of their lives. And every single time they drive past that building, that will always be vibe. It will always be vibe. So thank you guys for listening. I hope that you liked this. I have many more sit downs planned to talk with you guys, and I wanted to be able to offer you something. I know that maybe a day in the life we're not quite there yet together. I still want to share my days in the life, mostly recipes and, you know, what we've been up to, favorite products, blah, blah, blah. But these things are so important to me, and I hope that they add value to you in any way. And I appreciate you, and I appreciate your time, and I appreciate you listening to this, and most importantly, I appreciate you being here. And I will see you guys so soon, 2 days a week. I was just cleaning up and getting all of my stuff and closing down, and I forgot that I wanted to add this in there. I cannot tell you how many classes that I taught where nobody showed up. There's so many times where I probably should have felt like I should give up or wanted to give up, and I didn't, because I just knew it would take time, and I knew that even though it was hard, it was normal. So many classes I had to cancel because nobody signed up. So many classes I taught with 1, 2, 3 people, or it would be all new people and I didn't know any of them, and so many uncomfortable situations. But the growth that came from those situations, again, were so much greater. And so nobody starts off right. We all start off with 0 followers, right? We all, the people that you love so much on social media that have millions, they all start off with 0. And then you just have to build, you know, you only see the good parts. You don't see the struggle, or people don't talk about those things. So that was just like another little point that I wanted to share with you guys, and mostly to just keep it real and to inspire you, for you to know that no matter what you're going through, what you're doing, like, keep going. Because at the end of the day, it'll never ever, and this is something I would say in class all the time, it will never ever matter what it looks like, but it will always matter what it feels like, right? You can have all of the things in the world, but if you don't have the passion and the drive and the belief, like, you have nothing.